Good evening, Chicago. I'm Andy Zopp, along with guest co-host Inspector General Deborah Witzburg, and this is Chicago Newsroom 2.0.
Sufyan, Sohel, Swathi, Staley, and Juatise Gathings joined this week's roundtable to discuss the arrival of National Guard troops in the region and a federal judge's halt to their deployment, at least temporarily.
Product development expert and founder of Chicago-based consulting and implementation firm AtkCo, Shayna Atkins, joins the program to discuss the art and science of scaling a side business into a multi-million-dollar enterprise.
And renowned graphic artist Shawn Martinbrough joins us to discuss the importance of representation and the power that lives at the intersection of art and activism.
We've curated an incredible hour of news and information just for you.
And it all starts right now.
First, in Chicago and its suburbs, tensions between ICE and local communities are escalating alarmingly. Alderman Jesse Fuentes was briefly handcuffed and detained by federal agents inside Humboldt Park Health after asking whether they had a judicial warrant. Meanwhile, clashes, protests, and violent incidents, including the pepper spray shooting of a local pastor, have raised urgent fears that this conflict may be a testing ground for invoking the Insurrection Act or even proclaiming martial law in U.S. cities. Second, Washington remains gridlocked as the federal government enters its second week of shutdown. The IRS has announced furloughs for nearly half its workforce, air travel is being disrupted, and critical services are shutting down. At the same time, Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene has publicly split with Republican leadership, demanding continued protections for health care before she'll support funding legislation. The internal fractures in Congress are growing more visible by the day. Third, back home in Illinois, former Congressman Jesse Jackson Jr. is mounting a comeback bid for his old seat. His announcement reopens questions about redemption, legacy, and the shifting dynamics in his district's electorate. To help us parse these stories, their legal weight, political risks, and what they mean for people on the ground, I'm joined now by Roundtable regulars Sufyan Sohel, chair of the Cook County Commission on Human Rights, Swathi Staley, partner with Just Act Partners, and Juatise Gathings, the co-founder of Just Act Partners. Welcome back, my friends. Let's dive right in, shall we?
Yes, we shall.
So,
Thank you for having me.
how many people all saw the video of Alderman Fuentes being detained? Kind of outrageous, and the pastor being shot from, not only was he shot, they're like up on a building. I'm trying to figure out okay, how threatened were you feeling? They're spraying cemetery workers. What are they trying to tell us about how they're behaving?
Chaos, pure chaos.
Maybe I shouldn't start with you.
No, I mean, thank you. I think just this week there was a lady, Maria Greeley, a Latina. She works in the service industry, U.S. citizen, detained for over an hour. Right. And they said, we don't think you're a Greeley. You don't look like a Greeley.
Right, you don't look like she's adopted, right?
Yeah.
I saw that, and she's like, and they were like, she had a copy of her passport.
And they said it was fake.
They're like, that's fake. You're like, okay. That's
repeatedly,
not how
over and over again, people are afraid. They're pulling parents out of cars outside of schools. They're tackling people working for newspapers on the streets. They're trying to really instill fear in our communities and say, hey, certain people don't belong, and if you're going to stand up for them, we're going to come after you as well.
Yeah, I think, what about, what are you thinking about this, Juatise?
As somebody who's spent time at the Broadview Detention Center a couple weekends in a row and just really thinking through the impact that this is having, ICE is literally terrorizing communities. People are fearful. Had an Uber driver this week that left their job because they worked at a factory with a lot of folks who looked like them, and they just didn't feel comfortable going to work every day. His wife is now homeschooling their children, and it's unfortunate that we're here. And I think, to your point, a lot of it is geared towards lending chaos. I have friends who live all over the country texting and reaching out about the chaos in Chicago, and I literally send them back a video of whatever I'm doing in the moment that's not very chaotic at all. Chaos is only where ICE exists, and that's the unfortunate part about this dilemma, is that's not the message just being told broadly.
Yeah, and so it's fascinating, and in fact, we can talk about Judge Perry's ruling keeping the National Guard out. But part of the point is they're creating chaos, right? The whole point is like, we're going to make you safe. We're going to, the governor and the mayor, they're not keeping Chicago safe. Is there anybody who's worried about, safety in Chicago? Like, we're worried about ICE,
Absolutely.
right? Everybody's afraid of them,
right?
And so what's the purpose? Is the purpose just they're really trying to see chaos, or are they actually trying to do something legitimate?
I think so. It feels like so many of the actions that ICE is currently taking is to incite the kind of thing that they're saying that they're trying to prevent, which just makes the point that a lot of the individuals that have been hired into ICE don't have training, don't have the demeanor, don't have the understanding of the laws that they're being asked to enforce by the presidential administration that allows them to even safely do their jobs, let alone do it in an informed way, right? And all of that to say is that there's actually no basis for them to be there in the first place. Right. They really are. I truly think it's a scare tactic from the presidential administration at this point to try to create the environment that the administration is saying already exists in Chicago. To Juatise's point, the only chaos that's existing in the city at the moment is where ICE exists and the horrible treatment of citizens and residents of Chicago in a way that is unconstitutional and unlawful.
100%. Like, they're making promotional videos off of this, right? The South raid at the South Shore community where they were zip tying children and grandmas and locking them in the U-Hauls. They made a video and they're promoting it on their Instagram and social media feeds, right? I saw a video on the DHS Instagram feed of them pushing a man tied on a cart. And the likes were like, yes, this is the president I voted for. So they're feeding into this frenzy of there's people that don't belong, and there's chaos in the streets for everything that you want to create these very environment that they say they're trying to fight against.
And I frankly struggle with this idea, to your point about whether they're trying to accomplish. These are the same asylum seekers that the governor of Texas put on a bus to ship to Illinois that you're now trying to come here to capture and find. You already had them. If we really had, Republicans really had this posture around immigration. I think it's intentional to create chaos in cities where human rights are not respected as they are in other places.
Well, and also the fact that they're, the idea that it's supposed to be making us safer, and yes, we absolutely have some violence here, and we have shootings, although it's significantly down, but it pales in comparison, per capita to other places, say South Carolina, Alabama, Mississippi, all which had multiple shootings over the weekend. And so it seems, but the question is there underlying effort here to lay groundwork for the Insurrection Act, really, and then perhaps martial law, right? The president is afraid of elections next year, right? They're trying to change the rules in certain states. Is this the effort to try and just goad us into, creating havoc and then giving him the authority to not only send in troops, but also then to declare martial law?
I certainly think they're laying the groundwork for a lot of possibilities, and that is not one I'd rule out.
Yeah. Anybody else disagree?
No, totally agree. I think creating this fear amongst communities is the first step, that people won't want to leave their homes. They won't want to go to election polls if they know that there's going to be federal officers there. And it's to really skew elections in the way that the government wants it to be skewed.
So, are there upsides? Is there something, I think we can all get the bad. Are there things people can be doing? Are there things we should be recommending and talking to the audience about in terms of either protesting or how you protest or supporting candidates? Are there things we should be doing to make sure or to minimize, to make it much harder for them to do those things, like destroy, undercut our elections next year?
Yeah, I think that being firmly educated on the Constitution and the protections that it affords, I think is highly important. I know last week we had it wasn't even a prop. It's truly.
It's on my desk. I show it to people
the copy
every
of the
day.
Constitution.
Like,
it's so many people
Constitution.
Don't know the rights that it affords, and I think it was maybe just a few days ago, the president was caught saying, "Yeah, we suspended the First Amendment in certain instances." It's not his authority to do so. It's a constitutionally protected right. And so the idea of him, suspending free speech is not something that he is allowed to do. Now, are there unlawful actions that are happening to repress those rights right now? Yes, but I think the most important thing that people can be doing is speaking out, protesting peacefully, engaging in the democratic process of the right to free speech is incredibly important. Recording on public ways of ICE actions, because at some point there has to be some accountability and repercussions for the unlawful activities that are happening, and the only way to do that is to continue to, unfortunately, take risks that put people in the line of fire, but at the same time, there's no other way to document some of these injustices unless you're actually involved in, understanding what the rights are that are being violated at the moment.
I would say we got some, very strong court rulings from the district court here in Chicago last week. Take down the fence, which isn't down yet, but I think today was the day they're supposed to get it down by. But also that they're putting real limits on their ability to do warrantless searches, and most importantly, holding back the National Guard. So I think the courts, at least at the lower level, are doing the right thing. So I think. We'll see. I think that's, for now, probably the front line. When that pastor got shot last week, I turned to my husband and I said, if that guy doesn't sue somebody, I'm going to be very disappointed. And the next day, he joined a lawsuit. I'm like, yes, go ahead, pastor.
Yeah. To continue briefly, what else people could do, street vendors, for example, are facing huge harm.
Right.
There's lots of efforts to help make sure that they have funds that they need to continue to support their families. We had a protest last week. Within 24 hours, 7,000 people showed up, right? So it's how do we mobilize? And it goes to, I think, the root of loving your neighbor. It could be you next. So people are opening their homes and hiding their neighbors. The people are showing up and providing food and shelter and education and making family planning for their neighbors. It's seeing them as human, first and foremost, and reaching out to those that may be struggling or suffering from this.
Yeah, I think that's really important. And I also think as long as we're, nonviolent about it, I do think the crowds coming out, there was another one today on the Southeast side where the crowds came out and expressed how they felt about what the ICE agents were doing. It doesn't stop them necessarily, but it does slow them down, and it does stop them from running around and arresting everybody on the street. They'll take the one or two they get, and then they leave. And so I think, constantly standing up and saying, we know what you're doing, we know what you're doing is wrong, eventually you're going to be held accountable, I think is really important, because I think we have to continue to stand up and believe that, right?
Great.
Yeah.
So, moving on to another fun topic, let's talk about the fact that the government, nobody in the government's getting paid. It's week 2. Do we think they're getting really annoyed? Probably. If you're getting on a plane next week, you might want to think about it. I don't know. What do you think? The TSA people, I flew last week. I went to New York last week. The TSA people were great. I was actually thanking them. But this week they didn't get their paycheck, so... I don't know. What are we
I'm
thinking?
flying on Thursday, and I definitely have concerns about getting out. But at the same time, public servants in the federal government who are just trying to do their jobs, it is so unfair to them that that Republicans are holding off the passage of a continuing resolution in order to continue to get them paid. The rhetoric around the shutdown has been so just false. The idea that I think airports are being asked to air a video or an audio about blaming the Democrats for the shutdown when the Republicans controlled both houses of the government and are in the presidency. So it's truly just such a spectacle that's happening right now, and it's on the backs of hardworking federal workers who are just trying to do their job. So I think it's incredibly unfortunate, and I do think that we will start to see some major issues in the operating of our country. I mean, TSA for one, a significant number of CDC employees were just laid off. It's just truly gutting the safety net of our entire country by playing games with the budget.
So we'll come back to the Clear Hatch Act violation of the Secretary of Homeland Security announcing stuff at the airport.
Yes.
But and the one thing I will say, that and just to play slight devil's advocate, a couple of Republicans who are kind of in touch with reality have said we had a continuing resolution. That's the clean bill argument, right?
Mm-hmm.
That we get a continuing resolution. You want us to talk about healthcare? We'll talk about healthcare, but let's keep the government open for whatever it was, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, and then talk about healthcare. Why is that not an alternative?
Because I think the amount of cutbacks that they're looking at is so dangerous to the American people who are so reliant on some of these healthcare benefits that it's not even a starting point.
Right. Do you agree with that, Juatise?
I do.
Yeah.
I do. I think what's at stake here is unlike times that we've had before. And I do think it's enough to stop and pause before moving forward.
Yeah, my worry is that people don't get that. Like that there's such a huge disconnect between that position and because of course, nobody sees something that's like 3 months away, right? And also because they're like two different topics. And I think people don't fully understand the bargaining chip, right? The Democrats aren't in control, and so this is a big bargaining chip. But somebody shockingly who does understand it is Marjorie Taylor Greene, right? This is how bad the world is right now. In the last month, I've had to agree with Ted Cruz and Marjorie Taylor Greene. Like the world is whacked, right?
We've gone too far.
It's gone too far, right?
Too far.
But she's right. Right, and so that was kind of shocking that she actually is feeling for her people. And what do you think, Sufyan? Was that coming from she's worried about re-election, or she just actually cares about her people getting health care because her constituents will be very badly hurt?
Ooh, an intention question. I really think she sees something wrong with
she did, of course, vote for the bill. Let's just be clear. So apparently she forgot that part.
But she's speaking out, and I think she's raising the question of the impact it's going to have on so many people.
Right.
And I looked at some of the projections of how much rates are going to increase for under ACA and other policies, and it's huge. It's astronomical increases.
And these, of course, are people who many of whom are financially kind of living paycheck to paycheck as it is, right? So
can barely afford their premium as it is.
Right. We got a itty bit more time. Let's talk about Jesse Jackson Jr. So, Sufyan, you were kind of like, a guy's paid his time. He should run earlier. He should have a chance.
He should have a chance, right? To our conversation earlier, I think it's in the hands of the voters ultimately. And it's a balance of, on one side he has a name recognition, he's done his time, but then at the same time there's so much moral ambiguity around who he is and what he stands for and whether or not he will repeat a lot of the things that he did while in office before. I think it raises a lot of flags and questions, and I don't think he should run, but should he have the right to? Sure.
Well, for us, it's still America, so he certainly can. But for voters to be thinking about, does this really make sense?
I don't think it does. I have a lot of respect for the family name and what they've been to regions like Chicago, but the reality of it is we need fresh leadership in a lot of ways. And I think that occupying seats that others could occupy and creating ambiguity, especially in times like now where ethics and character are largely in question and politics on full display. There's so many other ways you can serve the city of Chicago in our region that I think he should reconsider how he wants to serve.
Yeah, right. I think that is absolutely exactly the point. Like, how do you want to serve? And just, it's going to be a battle zone in DC, right? And you want to be able to have credibility and some gravitas, and it's hard to see that. Former Congressman Jackson is a super smart guy, competent. He made a mistake, to your point. He's paid his time, but the question is this the place for you to give your service, or is there something else? So, we shall see you. The Jackson name is a powerful name. Reverend Jackson Sr. is coming up on his 84th birthday is coming up. So we'll see. I think I know he saw. I'm sure Jesse's like, it worked for my brother. So we shall see. And so we are actually, as always, we have used every second of our time in the fascinating conversation. I thank you guys. You are fascinating. I really appreciate you. Thank you for coming back. On the other side of the break, renowned graphic novelist Shawn Martinbrough joins Deborah to discuss how representation in art can inspire the next generation and how the power of art can activate communities far beyond the page. Stay with us.
Hi, I'm Bianca Cotton, inviting you to tune in for a new episode of Behind the Confident Smile, where we discuss what it's like to have an unplanned C-section with Victoria Ivy. Tune in on CAN-TV Cable Channel 19 or stream online at cantv.org or on the CAN-TV Plus app. Elevated conversation and storytelling. Experience the power of community television.
I'm Curtis Tarver, inviting you to tune into the next Brothers Talking, when the brothers and I unpack the topic of Black masculinity.
What it really comes down to is, as a person, as a human, how are you creating space for the people around you?
Join the conversation Tuesday at 7 p.m. on CAN-TV, Cable Channel 19, or stream online at cantv.org. Elevated conversation and storytelling. Experience the power of community television.
From the pages of comic books to classrooms and community centers, graphic novels have always been more than just entertainment. They've been a powerful tool for storytelling, representation, and activism. Joining me now is an incredibly talented artist who has been at the forefront of using his craft to spark change. Shawn Martinbrough is best known for his work with Marvel and DC Comics, where his striking visuals and storytelling have brought new depth to iconic characters. Shawn, welcome to the Newsroom.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being here. I was so looking forward to this conversation because while we have not yet taken to publishing oversight reports about city government in graphic novel form, perhaps we should. I think there's a lot to be learned from you and from your work. So tell us a little bit about yourself and your work. You've carved out an important place for yourself through your work. Talk to us about the importance for you of creating art which goes beyond entertainment.
Okay. Well, I mean, I've been drawing ever since I was a kid, and I was a huge comic fan growing up, and that led me to pursue studying art in high school and in college. And then I just always planned to get into comic books. And so I feel telling stories is something that just comes very organic to me. And then as I became a professional artist working for Marvel, DC, and many other comic book companies, I just began to see how storytelling is applied in every facet of life. So, the newsroom that you're in, you guys tell a story. I mean, there's storytelling in every aspect. So I really understood the power of storytelling and how it could be used to communicate positive and negative images and messages.
Absolutely. We think a lot about how to most effectively tell stories to reach our audiences and to affect change. And we think a lot about the importance of lived experience. Tell us how you think about the importance of your readers seeing their own lived experience, recognizing themselves on the page.
Well, representation is very important. And I always say whenever I speak at schools or just events or conferences that anyone who tells you that representation doesn't matter is already represented. And representation is very important because if you can see yourself in a role that you might think is unattainable, it gives you hope and it gives you inspiration that you can do that. For me, like meeting artists that were working for Marvel and DC Comics when I was in high school, and then when I met artists of color that were writing and drawing comics, that instantly told me that I could do it myself. And so I know how important that is. So, if I'm drawing a Batman story, or if I'm writing a Hellboy story, I'm always conscious of representing different voices and different looks for different characters. And also, since I'm a native New Yorker, I grew up in a very mixed community. So it's just natural for me to see people from all different walks of life walking down the street or in the subway. So it's always weird when I see a story that's completely like just monolithic in its representation. Yeah,
absolutely. Your work has given some additional kind of social and cultural context to familiar characters. How do you view the role of comics and graphic novels as a tool for activism to affect change?
Well, comic books have always had aspects of activism in them. You always like Superman is, he fights the bad guys. His whole motto is what truth, justice, and the American way. Well, and so Batman has always been about fighting crime and standing up for like the less fortunate or the less powerful. So that's something that's always been present in comics. And so for me, I've grown up on some of the greatest stories ever written. So that just inspires me to tell my own stories and feature characters of my own creation that I can inspire other people to say, hey, you know what? Let me tell a story that's about something, because I'm all about telling stories that are commercial, that are going to be fun and packed with adventure and action, but hopefully they resonate with you. So for example, like one of my recent projects is Red Hood the Hill. I wrote a miniseries for DC Comics featuring the classic character, the Red Hood, and I was able to play with Batman as well. And it's set in a fictional neighborhood of Gotham City that I co-created 20-something years ago. So it was amazing to sort of tell a story where I can populate it with different types of characters and introduce new characters from all different types of walks of life that are now part of the DC Comics canon.
Yeah, as you're telling those stories and driving them to impact, how do you think about doing that work in an era where we worry a lot about misinformation and whether people have good and clear information to kind of navigate an ever-changing world, right? What's the role for visual storytelling in an era of misinformation?
Well, that's a great question, because there's a great setup for one of my first two kids' books. Because after drawing for Marvel and DC for so many years and telling more adult stories, I was actually given the opportunity to co-write and illustrate two kids' books. And the one book that I co-created along with my partners, Milo Stone, Joseph Illage, and artist Chris Jordan, is Judge Kim and the Kids Court, which is all about teaching kids and their family about the law. Because I just remember, getting into conversations with people that would say, hey, if you ever stop by the cops, this is what you have to do because they can't do this. And I would be like, wow, that's completely wrong. Like, that person has zero idea about the law. And it got me thinking that most people don't know about the law. So why not create a book? It's in the same vein of those old Schoolhouse Rock jingles where we used to, way back in the day. I'm sure you're way too young to remember this.
Not at all. How a bill becomes a law. Yeah, me too.
Exactly. You know what I mean? And so like those things still are stuck in my head, and they were very great teaching tools. And so for me, putting out a book where it's about a little black girl judge, and her mom is her mom is a judge. She goes to school with her mom one day and sees how her mom judges cases, and then she learns some things. And when she goes back to her neighborhood and the kids get into a fight, she says, "Wait, don't fight. Take this up to my treehouse, present the evidence to me, and I'll figure out the case." And I thought, along with my co-creators, that this would be a really great way to teach kids about the law, because when you understand something, it's harder for you to fall victim to it.
Children's storytelling in particular as a mechanism to drive engagement and to inspire people to be involved, that really resonates for me a lot. I had a children's book that is, responsible for most of how I've gone about my career. I've talked about that on this stage. It was Miss Rumphius. But nice. I find that children's storytelling in particular is hugely powerful in terms of an activator. You've spent a career navigating an industry which maybe has not always been as hospitable to a range of voices as it might have been. Tell us about that. Tell us what your experience has been like navigating your industry.
It's interesting because I get the question all the time that, hey, Shawn, is there racism in comics? And I'm like, well, listen, there's racism everywhere. But what I tend to find is that a lot of times, certainly you have people that have agendas, but a lot of times it comes down to people that don't have a lot of friends that are different than them. So if you think about Marvel and DC Comics back when they were started, they were mostly populated by white men from the suburbs, and all of their friends were white men from the suburbs. And when it came time to hire a writer, you're going to hire your white friend from the suburbs. And then when they were like, hey, let's come up with some characters that maybe there's some female characters or maybe some characters of color. Well, who wrote those? They're white writer friends from the suburbs. And that's when you get a lot of, odd takes and stereotypical cliche characters. For me as an artist, I got my work in comics, and it really came down to me being judged on the art. And so I didn't deal with any, overt racism. Like, I don't know what happened when I walked out of the office, but I got the job. So for me, it's been very interesting. And like I said, when I was in high school, I met working professionals that were in comics. So Dennis Cowan was a Black artist. I later went on to meet Kyle Baker, who's an amazing artist. He's a Black guy. And then I had some amazing just artists, veteran writers that were just inspiring. So, the more you do something, you learn how to navigate it. And so I feel like I've never really experienced anything overt, but at the same time, I've never been given anything that's been offensive to draw. So I've been fortunate to work with some of the best writers in the industry when I write, when I illustrate. And now that I'm writing my own stories, I have more control over what content or what stories that I tell.
Yeah. So before we wrap up, let me ask you for a quick piece of advice, asking for myself and maybe for our viewers as well. What advice would you give people who want to use powerful storytelling to bring about change? What advice would you give people?
I mean, I would say that everyone has a story to tell, and it's just a matter of how well you tell it. So I definitely recommend that if you want to get into comic books, study comic books. Pick up books on writing. A lot of people say, hey, I got an idea, and they confuse that with writing. Well, writing is an art form, so you have to practice it. Same way, like I spent years practicing my craft of drawing. And I'm still learning. So I would definitely say practice, and surround yourself with other art. Like I always go to the museums, I'll go to take a movie break. Art inspires art, creativity inspires creativity. So feed off of things around you and draw inspiration from that. And also go outside of your bubble and experience different things, different cultures, different styles that you might not have thought about, because that will definitely feed your creativity.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you for your time. Thank you for all of your contributions to the world of graphic storytelling. Thanks so much.
Thanks so much for having me.
On the other side of the break, I'm back with an all-new edition of Inside Oversight. This month, we're spotlighting public safety reform right here in Chicago. Stay with us.
Hi, I'm Darius Hillman.
And I'm Gregory Smith.
On the next Petty and Profound, we're diving into America's body dysmorphia epidemic.
From celebrity weight loss campaigns to teenage boys obsessed with jawlines, we'll expose how algorithms turn insecurity into profit.
Are you kidding me with this?
And other blunt objects.
Tune in Wednesday at 7 p.m. on Can TV Cable Channel 19, or stream live on cantv.org or on the Can TV Plus app.
Elevated conversations and storytelling, experience the power of community television.
Can TV is the lens through which Chicago's stories are told, harnessing the unifying power of community television. With Can TV On Demand, immerse yourself in the richness of our city through exclusive stories and programs tailored just for you, connecting you to the heartbeats of our streets, the voices of our people, and the spirit that makes Chicago unique. Discover the strength of your community on Can TV On Demand.
This month's edition of Inside Oversight focuses on Chicago's public safety reform landscape, its complex history, our crowded reform landscape around police accountability, and the difficult work of fostering public trust. There are so many entities, so many acronyms, doing police oversight work in Chicago. I'm often reminded of watching my kids play soccer when they were very small. At first, all of the toddlers just chase the ball around, and they don't make very much progress. As the players mature, they learn to play their positions, and they're able to move the ball further down the field. That is where we are in Chicago's reform effort, and we'll talk about what that means. Police oversight is the system that ensures accountability, fixing bad systems, holding bad actors responsible when they break the rules, and strengthening the foundation for good policing to succeed. I'm Deborah Witzburg, Inspector General for the City of Chicago. Police reform efforts in Chicago are almost as old as policing itself. Chicago's first force was founded in 1835, and by 1898, the city had already formed its first committee to fight police misconduct. More than a century later, Chicago's police oversight and public safety reform apparatus has been shaped by crisis response more than proactive strategy, with many different entities and sometimes overlapping endeavors. As we work to improve the effectiveness of the city's public safety system and to foster public trust in the police, each of those entities must play its position on the field, playing to its institutional strengths. Over the years, scandals and crises have driven reform efforts that shaped city government institutions. From a police-led burglary ring in the Summerdale scandal of 1960, to torture under Commander John Burge in the 1980s, to the video-recorded murder of Laquan McDonald in 2014, each has spawned new efforts to fix what has gone wrong. Today, the resulting alphabet soup of agencies on Chicago's police accountability and public safety reform landscape includes us at the Office of Inspector General, the Chicago Police Department's Bureau of Internal Affairs, the Civilian Office of Police Accountability, and many others. There are many players and a great deal of work to do. We are not well served by duplicated efforts and reinvented wheels, and so each component must focus on that work which is best suited to its capacities and structure. The Community Commission for Public Safety and Accountability, for example, is uniquely well situated to ensure that the lived experience of Chicagoans shapes police policy. The consent decree monitor's efforts are singularly backed by the contempt powers of the federal court if the city fails to implement required reforms. At OIG, our own role in public safety reform expanded in 2016 with the establishment of our dedicated public safety section that oversees and works to improve the effectiveness, accountability, and transparency of the Chicago Police Department and Chicago's police accountability agencies, and to improve the critical relationship between CPD and the communities it serves. We conduct independent and objective evaluations, inspections, and reviews of the operations of CPD, the Police Board, and COPA, and we review closed police misconduct investigations to ensure that when something goes wrong, we have a system in place in which everyone, in uniform and out, has reason to be confident. The problem with policing in Chicago is not that it is a good system with a few bad people in it. Rather, it's a bad system with a lot of very good people in it. A focus on reform is not an alternative to a focus on public safety. In fact, it is only by reforming the way we do policing that we can be more effective at keeping people safe. And we must approach the work of fostering public trust in law enforcement as a critical mechanism to improve its effectiveness. At OIG, we are working hard to improve systems and to foster public trust in the city's public safety efforts. With safety and reform looming large for Chicagoans, the critical work of oversight and accountability must continue. By ensuring that our oversight institutions are working in thoughtful, complementary, and focused ways, and by understanding reform and public trust as critical to underpinning public safety, we can hope to move beyond Chicago's century-long cycle of reform efforts without results. On the other side of the break, Chicago Latino Theater Alliance's Mary Regalado joins Andy to share more about this year's International Latino Theater Festival. Stay with us.
I'm Juatise Gathings, inviting you to tune into Sisters Talking, a monthly program that brings a cross-generational group of Black women together, creating a safe and brave space for honest, fearless discussion about the issues and challenges and opportunities for growth experienced by Black women. Join the conversation on CAN-TV Cable Channel 19 or stream online at cantv.org or the CAN-TV Plus app. Elevated conversation and storytelling. Experience the power of community television.
For more than 40 years, CAN-TV has been Chicago's voice, your voice. We've shared your stories, amplified your concerns, and celebrated your triumphs. Now we want to hear from you. What programs matter most? What issues should we cover? How can we better serve your community? Visit cantv.org/feedback today. CAN-TV. Experience the power of community television.
Chicago is a world-class theater city, and every fall it becomes a global stage for Latino voices, stories, and artistry. Now in its 8th year, the Chicago International Latino Theater Festival brings together performers and productions from across the city, the nation, and Latin America, shining a spotlight on the rich diversity and cultural vibrancy of the Latino experience. From bold new works to reimagined classics, the festival doesn't just entertain, it fosters dialogue, builds community, and celebrates Chicago's role as a hub for Latino creativity. Joining us now is Mary Regalado, representing the Chicago Latino Theater Alliance, the group behind the festival. Welcome to the newsroom.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
We're so excited. So the festival started a little over a week ago, right? October 1st?
October 1st, yes.
Right, actually 2 weeks. Oh my God.
Yes, yeah, we're going into week 3.
It's almost 3. So, for my viewers, our viewers who aren't familiar with the festival, tell us a little bit about it and how it got started.
Sure, absolutely. So the Chicago Latino Theater Alliance, or CLATA for short, was founded in 2016, and it was founded to uplift the voices and the artistry of Chicago's local Latino theater artist community. And in 2017 was the first year that we had the Festival Destinos. So it started as a way to, as you said, shine a spotlight on Latino theater here in Chicago. And over the years, it has expanded to include artists from across the U.S. As well as Latin America. And it's grown every year. We're very proud of it.
Oh, wow. And so do you have a number of venues that you use? Where are the performances?
Great question. Yes, we partner with a number of different theaters around the city, and the local companies typically will rent out spaces as well. So this year we have 13 different venues that we're using across Chicago, and we are partnering with IU Northwest this year. So we're doing a production tomorrow actually at IU Northwest in Gary, Indiana.
Oh, wow. Is that the first time you've done something in Gary?
Yes, yeah, it's our Gary debut.
Oh, that's exciting. So what are the some of the standout, the things that are making headlines or really getting people's attention for this year's festival?
Well, this year we're really focusing on the diverse Latina community that is within Chicago, and we strive for pan-Latine representation as well as, I'm going to call it pan-theater representation. So lots of different styles of theater, be it movement, dance, clowning, farce, drag. There really is.
Did you say clowning?
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I love that.
Oh my gosh, yeah. We that's usually comes up in our partnership with the Physical Theater Festival.
Oh, okay.
They have a night of new works where people are trying out new acts that are all physical-based theater, and clowning often comes up.
Oh, wow. Who knew? I had never heard that phrase before. And is there a difference? So you said different kinds of theater. Are there longer form, like plays that are also being presented too?
Yes, absolutely. We've got a lot of longer form plays. We've had a night of like variety show nights as well.
Oh, wow.
And as well as a couple of musicals and one-person shows. So really,
you're running the full gamut, right?
Yes,
That's awesome. So how does the festival, so obviously you're doing a lot of things and performances, but how are you engaging? I know community engagement is important. How are you doing that?
Yes, absolutely. Well, we try to make sure that we want to expand our audience as much as we can, because I find that theater can be sort of both financially gatekept, intellectually gatekept, and we really strive to invite all of Chicago to come and experience the theater, because I feel like there are certain communities who feel like the theater isn't for them, or they don't find theater in their neighborhoods. And that's one of the reasons that we have so many venues, is that you can come see theater in Back of the Yards, and you can come see theater up in Edgewater or Gary, as well as theater that's based more in the Loop and on and in Lakeview and on the north side as well.
Nice. And so that's important. And do you also have opportunities for people to, ask questions or get lectures or those kinds of things? Yeah.
Yeah. So typically after a lot of our opening nights, we will have a Q&A session after the show with usually the director, sometimes the cast as well. So if people come to opening nights, you can stick around for that.
Nice.
And we also have a series of workshops that we call intercambios. And we invite anybody from the community to sign up. They're free to come learn from some of our local Chicago artists, and writing workshops, as well as a workshop on starting your own nonprofit theater, or vocal workshops as well. So there's lots of opportunities to engage in addition to coming to see the shows.
Oh, that sounds like a lot of fun. So you mentioned that you have artists not just from Chicago and from the U.S., but also from Latin America. How is that international piece grown, and how is that an important aspect of the festival?
So this year, our visiting artist is from Argentina. She's with a company called Flor de un Día. Her name is Maria Merlino, and Argentina, as well as a lot of Latin America, have really strong theater scenes that I think a lot of people in the U.S. might not be aware of.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I learned that too after I joined the festival and joined the organization. So I think it's important both for our local artists to be able to see theater from other countries, as well as local theater patrons to sort of expand their horizons and see theater from different countries and different experiences.
So part of the objective here is to spread what Latino theater can be and the different aspects of it. What are some of the challenges that the Latino theater community has in terms of surviving, growing, finding places for their performances?
Yeah, well, despite being a large portion of the Chicago population, not to mention the U.S. population, we're about 30% of the population in Chicago, and yet Latino arts organizations receive around less than 6% of the total arts funding that goes to arts organizations. So funding is, I would say, the biggest challenge that we face, because at the end of the day, we can't produce if we don't have the money for it.
Right. So getting a bigger share and making sure that you're getting funded and awareness makes perfect sense. So let's just say we have people who are now like as excited as I am based on this conversation. How can we learn more about the festival? Where do you get a schedule? And are shows always at night, or how is the festival running? You shared a little bit about the venues, but like where do I get a schedule, and what kind of time should I expect to give?
You can go to our website, clata.org, CLATA.org. And if you follow us on Instagram at Latino Theater, or on Facebook at Latino Theater, same across the board. Both of those places, all of those places, you can find links to buy tickets. You can find the schedule of the festival in our digital playbill. Most of the performances are in the evenings on like Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. And Saturdays and Sundays typically have matinees. If you're like me and you love going to bed, there are also matinee opportunities.
Okay, awesome. And then can you purchase tickets through the website as well?
Yes, tickets are linked in our website.
Okay, perfect. Mary, thanks so much. This has been you're doing obviously really exciting work, and it's been great to hear about the festival. And I know that hopefully some of the people who are watching are going to be excited. And it runs through the end through November, right?
Yes.
Beginning of November. So you've got time.
Yes, and some of the productions run past the festival run even. So make sure you check out that schedule. We'd love to see you during the festival, but you can also catch some of the productions as well through November.
Terrific. Thank you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much.
On the other side of the break, AtkCo founder and CEO Shayna Atkins joins me to discuss how she helps businesses hone in on the science of work. Stay with us.
Hi, I'm Bianca Cotton, inviting you to tune in for a new episode of Behind the Confident Smile, where we discuss what it's like to have an unplanned C-section with Victoria Ivy. Tune in on CAN-TV Cable Channel 19 or stream online at cantv.org or on the CAN-TV Plus app. Elevated conversation and storytelling. Experience the power of community television.
Every community has a story, a pulse, a voice waiting to be heard. At CAN-TV, we bring these stories to life, from the heart of Chicago to your living room. Join us in supporting hyper-local television. Your backing helps us cover what matters directly in our communities, unfiltered and upfront. Help tell the important stories of our communities. Become a program underwriter today.
In a world where the pace of work keeps accelerating and technology continues to transform how, when, and even why we work, one Chicago entrepreneur is helping organizations adapt with purpose and precision. Shayna Atkins is the founder and CEO of AtkCo, a Chicago-based consulting firm that's built its success on what she calls the science of work. Her company helps businesses streamline systems, boost productivity, and rethink how teams innovate, all while keeping people at the center of the process. Under her leadership, AtkCo has grown from a side project into a multi-million-dollar enterprise, partnering with both startups and major corporations to make work more efficient, equitable, and human-centered. Shayna joins us now to talk about her journey as a Black woman in tech and entrepreneurship, what the future of work really looks like, and how companies and workers can thrive in the face of constant change. Shayna, welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm truly honored to be here with you.
I was happy to have you. So first, might as well start with not the most, but one of the interesting concepts. What is the science of work, and how is that rooted in your business?
So the science of work is really the intersection of systems, process, technology, and people. My undergraduate degree is in physics, and physics at its core is about systems and interaction.
Okay, so you guys just stop right there for a second.
Okay,
physics, there were not a lot of you doing physics.
There were approximately 5 at Spelman College.
Yeah. Oh, okay. And you were at Spelman, so there were a lot of you at Spelman.
There are. Actually, Spelman is probably the highest graduate of PhDs in physics. From an undergraduate standpoint,
right.
But yes.
After Chicago State University.
Chicago State, yes.
But that's terrific. So what a great place to be in. So you were undergraduate, and why physics?
I believe I majored in physics because it was the thing that captured me. I studied AP physics at Walter Payton. In fact, apparently our physics teacher recruited us for being like the first Black girls to actually do the AP physics course at Walter Payton. So I wanted to be with my friends and have a double lunch, and then I just fell in love with the subject.
And so anyway, so your degree's in physics, and how does that then inform your business? I'm sorry, I digressed.
No, absolutely. So I've been doing systems and interaction for a long time, but I am at my core a very human-centered person. So I went from that to working at Accenture and focusing on product development, and then it just clicked. I found something in the world of digital transformation and future of work, and I was like, this is it. This is a thing that I can bring to organizations and add something new and add a little bit of flair and make a difference within organizations. So it just sort of came to me and it took over.
Yeah, and so it was kind of like a side hustle to start, right?
Yes, it very much was a side hustle. I started out with workshops at innovation hubs like Blue 1647. That's a shout out, but back in the day.
That's good, back in the day, right?
Yes.
We remember it.
Yep,
So you were doing workshops, and then how did it grow?
Yeah, so I was actually doing workshops, community workshops for business owners, and then I was working with other kind of corporate partners, and people started to ask me about, okay, what is this thing around future of work or ways of working? How can we think about systems in a different way? I think the pace of change of technology right now is insane, but even 10 years ago, people knew and organizations knew that they had to figure out how to get to zero digital complexity and fast. And so just because I was addressing those types of issues, I started to attract clients, and one thing led to another, and I got that one client that made the difference and kept on growing.
So give me an idea of what a classic assignment is for your company.
So from a consulting standpoint. So usually we are brought in to address a problem statement from a technology roadmap standpoint. It could be a digital problem, like, okay, we're trying to launch this new technology to market. It could be a reskilling thing, right? So we're trying to upskill. A lot of organizations now are coming to us and saying, we want our IT organizations upskilled by 2026. And so from that problem statement, they're like, okay, but this is not just a singular problem. You can't just train, right? So what are the systems we need from a hardware and software perspective? What are the processes that we need? And then what is the kind of change roadmap to get there? So we really come in with frameworks and thought processes around how to execute that. And then we actually implement in the background in partnership with a fantastic ecosystem.
Wow. And so, clearly this is a lot of focus of this is tech, right? And so, so you're in the tech and entrepreneurship space and innovation spaces. From my experience, there are not a lot of people who look like us doing that kind of work. So talk a little bit about what the challenges are in establishing yourself as competent and skilled in the space that you're functioning in?
I think one of the things that I learned really early on is that it's important to take a success story and, multiply that. So I think that AtkCo has a very unique way that it uses storytelling from a success standpoint of like, what have we done well, to go out and say, hey, it's proven, we've done this, and we have the story and the outcomes to back it up. So I think that's definitely a thing.
Okay, and so do you also do culture change around tech? Is it focused on tech or also just general culture change?
So if you are doing large scale change from a technology standpoint, I'm having very positive conversations around disruption right now. I'm talking to universities about what does it mean to upskill curriculum from a higher education standpoint. I was just in Huntsville and the word space demand came up because Department of Defense is the Space Force is moving to Huntsville. But in those scenarios where that there's a large amount of technology implementation that's going to happen, humans are really at the center of that. And so cultural change is essential. And one of the things that we love to do is to say, okay, what are the bright spots in your organization from a human standpoint and from a process standpoint? And how do we scale and multiply that to achieve your digital goals?
Wow. And how are you doing a lot of AI? AI seems to be at the top. If you say tech, you have to say AI. Do you doing work in that space as well?
Yes. So, I think the one thing is that we do internally what we practice externally, which is we're continuously learning and upskilling ourselves. And so we have a number of amazing partners who allow us to implement their solutions, which a lot of partners, Cisco and Nature, IBM, they have great AI solutions. And then we're upskilling as well. There's a lot to learn and a lot to know within organizations, and we're able to provide curriculum and certification skills in AI, and then also upskill our own workforce in that as well.
So you've grown incredibly, and there's another big thing. It's your 10-year anniversary in 2025, right?
Yes, it is.
That's exciting. So can you believe that you made it to 10 years?
I can. It's a very nostalgic time, for sure.
Is that 10 years just, that's 10 years it not being a side hustle, right?
10 years in business. So that includes the 2-year side hustle.
Okay.
Yes,
well, first of all, that's incredible to go from side hustle to where you are now is really amazing. Congratulations, and we're thrilled for you.
Yeah, absolutely. We're having a celebration, a gala on October 23rd at the Willis Tower. And so I'm so excited to bring together customers, partners, and family and friends to celebrate.
Terrific. October 23rd. Be there with AtkCo. That's great. At the Willis Towers. Congratulations.
All right,
it's great to see you, Shayna.
So great to see you too.
Deborah.
That's our time for this week. Thank you to all of our guests and to you, Chicago, for making CAN TV a part of your day.
On behalf of Deborah and the hard-working Emmy Award-nominated team here at CAN TV, be well and well-informed.